Hello and welcome to my channel. We're going to be talking about near-death experiences and the Mandela effect. So I just opened a few tabs. This right here, it says, is there a correlation with near-death experiences and the Mandela effect? Is it possible everyone in the Mandela effect community died in a mass extinction event in another reality and then slid to this one? Okay. When did this start for you? 2-week survey updated. Huh. Says the year it happened may be important. Let's see. Mandela survey. This survey is brief, but the questions can get personal. Just don't answer them if you aren't comfortable. Just don't lie is all. Thanks, Judy. Have you experienced the known Mandela effects? Yes. And your age, your physical gender at birth. Which ones have you experienced? Huh. Oh, I have a lot. What are some of the other personal Mandela effects that you have experienced? Death in celebrities. That's definitely one. Spelling, pronunciation, changes of common words. Yes. Uncommon words. Yes. Changes of important dates. Yes. Changes in product names. Changes in place names. Yes. What types of the Mandela effects have you experienced? Personal effects, software devices. Oh, that's really cool. So there's a questionnaire if you're interested in taking it at the SurveyMonkey. So hopefully it's still going. Have you died? Take the quantum immortality test. Have you experienced a near-fatal accident or survived a serious illness? Quantum immortality suggests you may have died. Some say this test will determine if it happened to you. Have you had an unexplained accident where you should have died, but due to some random stroke of amazing luck, you managed to survive? Were you ever so ill you narrowly escaped death? Afterwards, did you remember events differently from those around you? One possible explanation is that you may have indeed experienced death in another timeline, but your consciousness continued into an alternate reality. Ooh. Quantum immortality. Quantum immortality started as a thought experience in the late 1980s and later was more fully developed by a physicist and cosmologist Max Tegmark. It suggests we may die many times throughout our lives. With each passing, our consciousness moves, slides, jumps, or shifts to the closest timeline, very similar to the one where we died. It is a concept that we combined with other ideas and morphed into what Jerry and others suggest could have happened. Among other potential explanations, these ideas and application of the concept lie outside of the realm of science but have been embraced by many of those who believe they have experienced such a shift. Mandela effect, the newest name for reality shifts. Huh. Growing interest is now being directed to the topic of reality shifts, aka the Mandela effect, as people are increasingly talking about the remembering books, products, movies, songs, and other things that either no longer exist in this reality or exist in a different form. So, there's a very interesting webpage if you'd like to go to it. So you can see the address up there. Okay, it says they call it quantum immortality because the theory is that there are multiple parallel realities and that when we die, we transfer to the next reality where the events took a slightly different turn and you never had the accident or survived it. The ME is a result of transferring to a parallel reality when dying. It's a theory this person's starting to entertain more and more. It says there's a movie on Netflix called The Discovery. And it also said, how did you merged together with the you from the other reality. Okay, do you have any? Anyway, I've had some near-death experiences. I'll mention some of mine. When I was 3 years old, we were on vacation in Florida at the beach, and I saw my dad swimming out in the ocean, and I wanted to swim as well, so I tried to teach myself to swim. I was drowning because I just wasn't smart enough to stand up, but I guess my sister lifted me up at some point, and I really thought I had died. And then about the same age, I walked around the swing set. My brother was swinging in our yard, and I couldn't judge the distance on his forward motion because he was going backwards, and it hit my head, and it cracked my skull open, and they raced me to the hospital, and then the doctor put this paper sheet over me. I remember it had like all these little squares of different color. It was like, I don't like the size of toilet paper those different squares were. Anyway, they put it over my head like I was dead, and that must have been when they stitched me up or something. And things were different after one of those. I remember my mother was like nicer to me. She let me wear her sunglasses to play Catwoman, and after a while, she wasn't the same person at all, and she like hated me. So, and then after one of those, I remember having this horrible, horrible nightmare, and I woke up and I realized that my mother didn't love me, and I was terrified that the dream would eventually come true, and I started praying alone every night. I must have prayed every night for a year, and I was about, like I said, 3 years old. And I also remember that at that age, one time, I had this dream, and there were these cherub. They were singing and they were dancing in circles around me. And in my dream, it felt like I woke up and had saw them, and like it wasn't a dream. And at the time, I had moved rooms. I used to share a bed with my sister, and then I had moved into my brother's room, and he had moved out, and I used to wet the bed. And after I moved out, and that happened, I never wet the bed again. Okay, and let's see. I remember another time I was asleep and my dad was trying to wake me up, and I could see him, but my eyes were closed and I couldn't open them. And he said, "Sharon, I've got a candy bar for you." And my body from the waist up jolted upright, and he laughed and laughed, and he gave me a Hershey's candy bar. It was a plain candy bar, not the one with almonds. Then there was another time that I lived with my dad, and my parents were split up, and he had a girlfriend, and we lived in this haunted house, and I dreamt my dad was beating me, and his girlfriend was standing behind him, fake crying and smiling at me while he was beating me. And then I moved out to go live with my mother, and I lost 2 or 3 days of memory, and I don't remember moving out. I just remember the bad dream. And then I lived with my mother, and I was going back with my mother to get my things, and I didn't know what happened to those 2 or 3 days. And there was another time when I lived with my mother. I remember I got very sick, and I was vomiting so bad for days, and then I was better for a couple of days, and then I was sick again, and my mother would stand over me and watch me, and I thought she had purposely given me food poisoning twice in a row. I thought she was, I just thought I was going to die. And then we moved right after that to a whole new place. And in the new place, my mother spent years limiting my food, and I weighed less than 100 pounds, and I think she was trying to starve me to death. And near the end of living with her, I had attempted like astral projection out of boredom, and I was going through things in my preteens and checked out some books about them, and my mother saw them and told me I was going to go to hell, and I was just like my dad. And they were books about psychic abilities, and shortly after that, I moved away and lived with my dad. And things were very different. One time, near the Y2K thing, I fell asleep and I had this dream, and it was like I had died and I was flying, which I know it means I'm crazy, completely crazy, but I couldn't wake myself up, and it seemed like an hour, and usually I can just wake myself up like it's nothing. But it was terrifying, and my daughter, I dreamt she had died as well, and I was flying and I was trying to find her. So, and then I woke up and I realized that people had messed with the propane, and they had adjusted it because there was problems with the propane, and I was scared maybe it had leaked. I don't know. So, and then I met someone a few months later who just out of the blue looked at me and said that burning to death was a horrible way to die. And he had asked me out and then threatened me. And I don't know, right after he said that, I saw my ex drive by with his sister, and it was just, I don't know, it was just really, really strange. One time when I was adult, I was on a bicycle and someone ran into me with a car and took off. And I don't remember them hitting me, but I had blood coming out of my head and my arm was fractured, and I walked into a nonprofit place and the lady told me get out because I was getting blood on her carpet, and she was really mad and mean. And then I remember I went to get my sunglasses, and where there were tire tracks and they were in a completely different place than where I thought I had wrecked the bike. And then a few days later, my son was hit by a car while riding the same bike, and the driver took off, and my son had a severe head injury that affected his memory. And so, and my son, he is dead now. I almost died one time, a different time. I had E. coli, and then I was sick for like a month or two, and while I was getting over it, my son was murdered. So, anyway, that's what I can remember at this time with my near-death experiences. And here's a definition of near-death experience. It says it's a profound personal experience associated with death or impending death, which researchers claim shares similar characteristics. When positive, such experience may encompass a variety of sensations, including detachment from the body. Detachment, that word looks weird. Feelings of levitation, total serenity, security, warmth, the experience of absolute dissolution, and the presence of light. Neuroscience research suggests that NDE is a subjective phenomenon resulting from disturbed bodily multisensory integration that occurs during life-threatening events. Let's see. The equivalent French term experience, as a result of discussions in the 1890s among philosophers and psychologists concerning climbers' stories of the paranormal life review during falls. In 1892, a series of subjective observations by workers falling from scaffolds, war soldiers who suffered injuries, climbers who had fallen from heights, or other individuals who had come close to death near drownings. Accidents was reported by Albert Heim. This is also the first time the phenomenon was described as a clinical syndrome. In 1968, Celia Green published an analysis of 400 first accounts of out-of-body experiences. This represented the first attempt to provide a taxonomy of such experiences, viewed simply as anonymous perpetual experiences or hallucinations. In 1964, Swiss-American psychiatrist and pioneer in near-death studies, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, published her groundbreaking book on death and dying, What the Dying Have to Teach Doctors, Nurses, Clergy, and Their Families. And it says Raymond Moody, who in 1975 coined the term near-death experience as an umbrella term for the different elements, out-of-body experiences, paranormal life review, the light, the tunnel, that's cool, or the border. The term near-death experience had already been used by John C. Lilly in 1972. And there's Lilly, Lilly. See, I think the flower lily used to be spelled that way. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, and please leave comments and let me know if you have ever had a near-death experience. Anyway, appreciate you tuning in. Bye-bye.